Hey, everybody, it's Mike Gomoll, Joey Song Podcast. You are going to love today's guest. Not that you don't love all the guests, they're all great, but today is a really cool one. I'm joined by my pal, Bob Santelli. Bob is the founding executive director of the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music that is opening up June of 2026 in just a few months on the campus of Monmouth College in New Jersey. And Bob and I spent some time talking about what the center is going to be about, what the purpose is, some Bruce stories, talk a little bit about the E Street Band, a lot of Bruce. So if you're a Bruce person, and if you're not, then I don't know what's wrong with you. You are going to love today's conversation. So please stick around. Bruce Springsteen Center for American, I have to write it. It's so easy and I still can't remember it. Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Google it. Get tickets because you're going to want to see it. There's a bunch of cool activities planned around the opening in June. And if you don't Google it, I don't know what's wrong with you. Anyway, stick around, Joy Song Podcast with our guest, Bob Santelli. Welcome to the official podcast of Joey Song. You know, at Joey Song, we have one mission: raise as much money as we can so that research into finding treatments and cures for epilepsy can get the funding it needs. We would love your support. If you can subscribe and leave a review of this podcast, it will help more than you could ever know. If you have a couple extra mouse clicks left in you, go to YouTube and our YouTube channel, Joey Song, and subscribe. There, in less than 2 minutes with a couple of mouse clicks, you will have made it easier for others to find us and help spread the word. Now, if you want to do a bit more, head over to joeysong.org, consider buying a show ticket or some merch, or even making a donation. Thanks. You know, we'll beat this disease, and together we'll have some fun doing it as well. Join us. All right, let's do this. Hey, everybody, we are back. And as I mentioned in the preamble, you know, when you get to be my age, fun things kind of happen by serendipity. And Bob and I were both in Arizona in January at Cubs Fantasy Camp. And Carl Marquardt, our mutual friend, said, hey, you should talk to this guy. He's tangential to the music business. Well, tangential is barely the word for it. Bob and I sat by his locker and talked for about 20 minutes, and then probably over the course of the week spent a couple hours in the van talking about music. Bob Santelli is with me, and Bob is the founding executive director of the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Bob, welcome to the Joey Song Podcast.
Well, happy to be here, Mike. It's a pleasure.
It's great. It's great to have you. I will remember there was one time I was taking you back because you had a phone call in the middle of the afternoon. And I think you and I went about as deep into music. We were talking about the Bomb Scare show, and we were talking all sorts of stuff. And I think we kind of bonded over that one.
Yeah. You know, I didn't know that you had that kind of Springsteen knowledge. Had I known, I would have gotten on the bus earlier.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think I conveyed to you that while Bruce is a New Jersey boy, between the Bomb Scare show and riding along through the Wisconsin night, we here in Wisconsin feel like he's one of ours.
Mm-hmm. Well, he is. He really is. You know, he's one of everyone's in America. He's the poster boy for American music. And, you know, one thing I've learned seeing him a lot overseas is that he has become basically the personal representation of what Europeans think America should be, or what America they want it to be, you know? I mean, it's really important, you know? Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears, my friend, from your lips to God's ears. Well, it's, you know, and I did see the other time I saw Bruce, well, I've seen Bruce many, many times, but he also appeared here in Madison at a rally for President Obama back, oh boy, would have been 04 maybe? No,
Probably,
12. I think it was 12. I think it was the re-election thing. And I remembered very clearly. My wife and I went, and he did a couple songs. So anyway, as I said, everybody in my introduction, Bob and I could do this for about another 7 hours, but none of us have that amount of time to turn this into a 5-part miniseries. But I really wanted to have Bob talk a little bit about his facility that's about to open in June, correct, Bob?
That is correct. It's opening to the public on June 7th. Yeah.
Ready or not. Yes. As I said, it's called the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Talk a little bit about what the building is and the spirit and everything behind it, because I think people will be fascinated by it.
Well, it's really a hybrid. There's never been anything like this, quite honestly. I say that because there is the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then there's the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Notice the difference in title right there, and there's a big, very important reason why. I went to Bruce with the idea. I said, look, I had done the Woody Guthrie Center and early on helped get the Bob Dylan Center off the ground. And I had an idea that we should have one here in Jersey that celebrated Bruce Springsteen and then also kept his archives in New Jersey. The thing that really spawned that was I was getting calls from the Smithsonian, which I had a long relationship with, having done exhibits for them in the past. Library of Congress, same deal, relationship, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And all three were basically, look, can you do us a favor and talk to Bruce? Because we'd love to have his artifacts. We'd love to have his papers, his memorabilia at the Smithsonian or at Library of Congress. And I started to think, geez, I don't want to be the one. I'm from Jersey. I was born and raised here. I don't want to be the one who's responsible for having Bruce Springsteen's, basically his legacy leave the state, because he is our favorite son. And that would be a big mistake for me. So I went to Bruce, but first, actually, I went to Monmouth University. I'm an alum of Monmouth University, and I went there and I said, look, this is what I'd like to do. But before I went to Bruce, I wanted to see if, we could build this on the campus. And they said, this would be amazing. It was amazing because Monmouth University is located in West Long Branch. Bruce was born in Long Branch. He wrote 3 or 4 blocks from where this building is, the landmark album Born to Run. He lived there. So there's a lot of great connections there. And, when I was a student there, I was there from 1969 to 73, and he probably played a dozen times. And I got to see him and write about him as a young, college reporter. And it just seemed so perfect. And I looked at it. I'm at the kind of tail end of my career now, having done 9 of these museums in the past. And I'm from New Jersey, as I said. I'm from the Jersey Shore, which is where we are located. I went to Monmouth. I'm an alum. And I rode Bruce's coattails as a music journalist. I thought, wow, I could tie all of this up so this could be both professional and personal for me.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So after I got Monmouth's okay, I went to Bruce and I said, yeah, what do you think? And he was the one who came up with the idea. He told me, look, Bob, I'm honored that you would want to do this. He says, but I don't really see myself in that picture. He says, if you would think about it in a bigger picture, I'm an ongoing chapter in the story of rock and roll and American music. If you can incorporate a bigger, if you will, palette to paint from, I'd be interested. And right then and there, the first iteration, the name was the Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. It was a big mouthful. So we simply changed it to the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. And $52 million later, we opened in a couple of months. And I have to say, one of the things I did tell Bruce was, I don't want any money from you. I don't want you to do any benefit concerts. I know vanity projects are not what you're about. I will take care of it. I will raise the money. Monmouth didn't have to pay any money. We just went out independently and we raised this money. And I'm happy to say, on that trip in your bus, I got the phone call that said, we did it. And sure enough, man, that was the happiest day of my last 10 years I've been working on this. I didn't care if I struck out because I did that a lot, but it was okay, man. It was okay. I had to put my seatbelt tighter. I was so excited I could hit the ceiling.
Yeah, we installed an airbag back there for you just in case. Well, it's funny for the folks listening. So Bob just so you guys know, Bob didn't walk around fantasy camp talking about this. He and I backed into it in a different conversation. As a matter of fact, you might not remember this, Bob, but you were in my van the first morning and I was introducing everybody, and all you said was, "My family gifted me this because I've got a big project closing soon."
Yeah.
Didn't say a word,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people would have said, "Well, my Bruce Springsteen," and Bob didn't. But in subsequent conversations, he and I did talk about it, and I found out. And then in that van ride, we had a full van, and I knew what was going on. I knew the conversation he was having because he had said we were X million away, and I've got a phone, and I could hear it in his voice. And I didn't let you get away without telling everybody in that van. I said, "All right, Bob, you got to tell everybody else what that phone call was."
I was screaming it out the windows to the guys at the gas station. Are you kidding? No, I only told you because in conversation, you came across as a very knowledgeable and a very passionate music fan, which you are, of course. And I thought, this would be something I could share with you that you'd appreciate it, and understand it. And of course you did. And then when that announcement came, then everybody needs to
and they needed to. That news that big needs to be celebrated. Right. Yeah. So talk a little bit. You started talking about the subtleties of it, right? That this is the Center for American Music. It isn't Paisley Park. It isn't one of those where it's centered around Bruce. As you say, it's part of the story. What would people see when they head out to Monmouth and to the Jersey Shore? What's the experience going to be like?
Well, the first thing you will do is you will enter into a state-of-the-art 240-seat theater, which is Dolby certified. So intimate concerts will occur there, but also lectures, film series, conversations, podcasts, etc. And then you will sit down before you start your experience and watch a 25-minute film that my good friend, filmmaker Tom Zimney, who does a lot of Bruce's videos and documentaries, he and I and a gentleman by the name of Eric Flanagan, who I used to work with at Backstreet, which was this old Springsteen fanzine some years ago.
Absolutely.
And we put together the film. Basically, it is the story of American music through the eyes, ears, memories, and music of Bruce, as if he were your narrator through it. And Jersey is one of the smallest states in the Union, with also the most densely populated, right? But we often see ourselves in terms of ethnicity and culture as a microcosm of America. And so what you get to see here when you follow Bruce through Jersey, and he explains to you his roots, which are American music roots. You think just it's rock and roll. No, it's gospel. And there are a lot of black churches here that he would listen to and get that gospel feel. And there were jazz clubs and blues clubs and folk, and 50 miles from New York City as the crow flies. So it was a great place for a musician to actually come of age. And he tells that story. So when you walk out of the film, you say, Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Now I get it. And then you basically will go in, and there are American music galleries, okay? And there are special exhibit galleries. There are many interactives, immersive displays where we delve into the creative process. I'll give you an example. You'll be able to learn how to play drums sitting behind a drum set. Max Weinberg will teach you how to play Born in the USA. It sounds pretty simple. Bomb. Yeah. Oh boy. Wait till you hear what you have to do on the hi-hat and the bass drum, right? But people will do that. And then you can, remix some songs. You'll be able to learn about the guitar influences of Bruce and Nils Lofgren and others in the band. So there's a lot of that. And then, we dig into the creative process of Bruce. We have one exhibit called The Education of Bruce Springsteen, and it's all the books. He's self-educated. He barely got out of high school, landed for less than half a semester in a community college, and then basically educated himself. So he's a huge reader. And so he talks about the books that influenced his writings. And you compare John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath to The Ghost of Tom Joad, for instance, and hear how that all came about. So it's certainly fans will love the exhibits, but there's an educational component with the hope that when you go in, you gain critical analysis, you gain additional information so that you become a better, more sophisticated listener, not just of Springsteen's catalog, but of American music in general.
Drawing those lines, that connective tissue is so important. I know most of the world isn't, knee deep in music dork like you and I are, Bob, but
Right.
it's important that people understand how, Woody Guthrie begat Bob Dylan, begat Bruce Springsteen, begat Wilco, begat the Lumineers, and you go down the line, and then there's all those offshoots, and it's real easy. I mean, the classic, Bruce Springsteen story is how people will play Born in the USA at some pro-America rally, and it just shows people don't listen to the lyrics or the context, right? But that goes through everything, and understanding that, like I said, that connective tissue. And I just did the kind of the political folk rock side of it. As you mentioned, the blues and all of those other things with New York being so close, how you could listen to any of Bruce's records and not hear the gospel influence. And I don't even have to mention going to one of those shows. I mean, it's a church service in every way possible, with the call and response and everything that goes on. So I think it's fascinating. Now I'm going to, give you a hard time here. You had probably the easiest subject to do that with, because if anybody is the through line of American music from 40s, 50s, and 60s through 90s and the aughts, it's Mr. Springsteen, right? I mean, but what a better vehicle to teach that story. I can't think of one.
And not only that, I mean, Bruce is an amateur musicologist, but you think if he's an amateur musicologist, you can't believe the knowledge that Max Weinberg has, or Stevie Van Zandt, or Gary Talent when it comes to blues. Right. I mean, they know their stuff, and they know their music. These guys have been playing together for over a half century, right? And so there becomes, you kind of know what the person is going to do. One of the most exciting things as a fan that I get to do and on occasion is to go to sound checks, right? Because they'll be I remember, where was I? I was up in Portland, Oregon, right? And I went to the sound check, and instead of doing, going over a couple of the songs, Bruce just gets up on the stage, puts on his guitar, everyone's waiting for him to start, and he breaks into the Paul Revere and the Raiders, Just Like Me. And he goes through a whole Pacific Northwest mini set of Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Sonics, Heart. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah. You just saw a concert based on that geographic locale. That's how well they know this. So he wasn't even calling out the songs. He just played the first couple of chords. Everyone just jumped in. Fascinating.
Hang on, right?
Yeah. Band that is, and the knowledge. So, the idea is that we have a number of really good rock and roll and American popular music minds in the band to help us, and hopefully to do a lot of public programs, because this is something that we will do a lot of in terms of streaming out podcasts, conversations with performances, intimate performances, etc. So we'll be very bullish and getting out there thanks to technology.
Yeah, I will tell you, one of my favorite listens on road trips is the Underground Garage on Sirius XM, and whenever Steve's on, he is not the factoids that he gives are not the ones that you get in the first paragraph of Wikipedia, right? When he's talking about that stuff and talking about some, doo-wop band from 52 that he saw, it's coming from here. I'm pointing to my heart for the people not watching it. This is not something he ripped off of a teleprompter, and you can just hear it in his voice. And I would guess sitting down with Bruce is the same kind of thing. Although I can't imagine that there's anybody more knowledgeable, especially in that 50s and 60s and 70s rock scene than Miami Steve. I mean, good Lord.
They know it. There's a great scene in the film where Bruce is at Jersey is famous for its diners, and Bruce is at a diner, and they still have one of those old fashioned like mini jukeboxes where you can manually turn it and you can pick it. And we catch him on film going through, and he's looking at different songs and he's commenting on these songs, and then he'll sing a little bit of it. Oh man, this is great, and blah blah blah. It was not something that we expected to have, wasn't in the script per se, but man, does it work, because you get to see the knowledge, the absolute knowledge of Bruce. And then when you, like I said, when you couple things with Max and Gary and Steve in particular, holy mackerel, it's pretty amazing. I did a book with Max Weinberg many years ago called The Big Beat: Conversations with Rock's Great Drummers. And I had the opportunity to work with him and getting, which rarely happened. And still to this day, you know, everyone wants to interview the lead singer or the lead guitar player or whatever. No one ever wants to talk to the drummer. Well, we talk to the drummers, right? And man, did we get some really fresh perspective on performances and recordings and the history of rock and roll. It was one of the most fun projects I ever did.
Yeah, I can imagine the back line is very much underappreciated in music, especially when you consider all the gyrations and the things that go on with the singers and the guitar players. If it wasn't for Gary and Max, I guarantee you, for every other band, it would go off the rail. Right? Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts were the backbone, and Ringo and Paul, that keeps them from going off the rails. And somebody like Max, who's drumming, even to an uneducated person like me, has that jazz flavor to it. And we got to see, I was so glad when he was able to be on Conan, because you could see him do something other than those songs, and you could see the flair and just the feel and the touch. It's really remarkable. It really is. It really is. I'm going to guess too, when you were going through that jukebox in that diner, that Bruce could sing the B-sides of those records too. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say probably wasn't just the A side.
I knows it. I mean, he knows it. Yeah, and the funny thing is, he also knows certainly better than me. When I was with the Grammys, I'd have to listen to all contemporary music. Had to stay on top of it. It was a job, right? Bruce knows all this stuff. He listens. It's not like he's just I don't listen to the new stuff. He does. So he knows, very aware of all the new music that's coming out, and which I think is really interesting that at his age, he's 76 years old. He is still interested in the latest cutting edge, whether it's hip hop, which he loves, or the rock and roll, whatever. He's on top of it, which is really, as is little Stevie, because of his radio show, of course.
Yep. The what do they call it? The coolest song in the world, right? This week kind of stuff.
The coolest song in the world.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing legacy. It really is, and it couldn't be from a better group. And I put a group in there because most of us, while we think of Bruce, we do think of Steve, and we think of Gary, and we think of Nils and Clarence, God bless him, and everybody else that's come and gone before it, because they have been such almost like a medium, right? If you think about a seance, right? Channeling that back through to what it is and combining it all together. It's been a great thing to do that. Now, talk a little bit about what's going to be happening in June, on June 7th. I'm assuming there's special festivities to start it off. If people really did want to make sure they were there for the ribbon cutting, so to speak, what's going on that weekend?
Yeah, June 6th is the ribbon cutting. It's an event that is basically more for media, VIPs, family members. It's a limited thing. There will be fans there, of course, but the actual opening is on the 7th, where fans can actually go through. But there are a number of events happening the week prior, which we'll be announcing, one of which American music fans will be really interested to talk about, to hear, and maybe even make the journey to Jersey. It's going to be that big. It was started out as one concert. It is now two. Yeah. And so we'll be announcing this. We'll be announcing this in a couple of weeks. I don't want to do it now because not all the artists are confirmed, but please, you'll hear about it. I promise, because it will be one of the top events of America's 250th birthday. And being the Center for American Music, it's almost our responsibility to make sure that American music is celebrated during his birthday. And that is what we plan to do.
Well, and I won't spill the beans, but you and I did talk a little bit about it. And trust me, people, if you're listening, you want to be there. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And if you don't want to fight the June 7th crowd, let me put it this way. Bob and I were talking about when I could come out, and he said, why don't you come out in September or October when the crowds have finally come? And I think we're going to be lucky if it's calmed down by then as well, because it's going to be really special.
It is, we're just 3 blocks from the ocean in New Jersey. The Jersey Shore is filled with people during the summertime. So, yeah. And a secret to any of you who would like to come, September is the nicest month in New Jersey. The on the shore in September is pretty special. Many of the tourists have gone home. Not that we need them and love them, but all of a sudden you get your parking spaces back, and the beach is less crowded, and the water is the warmest, and of course will be less crowded as well. It's a great time to visit.
So it's not in the swamps of Jersey.
No, it's not. This is not right 3 blocks from the ocean, right? So really total Jersey Shore style. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I want to talk a little bit. You guys need to hear some of the other projects that Bob has been involved in. He mentioned a couple of them, but he won't do it on his own, so I'm going to force him to name drop a little bit. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with the Joey Song Podcast with Bob Santelli. So stick around, folks. We will be right back. All right, folks, we are back. One thing before I talk a little bit about Bob and some of the other projects he's been involved in, the other thing I told him when we were in Arizona, I said, if you stripped away everything Bruce did in his career just for the opening stanza of Thunder Road, he would be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because, I mean, talk about American frickin' poetry. And I think we had this conversation, sways or waves, right? We don't.
Yes, we did.
Bruce, yeah. Because I think he was on some TV show and found out that he had it wrong. So, and it's his song. So that's just that's your poetry. So let's talk a little bit, Bob. You didn't just stumble into, this isn't your first rodeo at putting together a facility like this. Talk about some of the other things that you've done, because I think people will be blown away.
Well, for years, it was always my ambition. And for about 18 or 20 years, I did just that, I was a music journalist, right? And I was a music critic for the Asbury Park Press, which gave me a front seat to a lot of the great things that were happening with Bruce and John Bon Jovi, Southside Johnny, and the Asbury Jukes, etc. But I also was writing for a lot of other magazines, whether it was Rolling Stone or Modern Drummer or New Jersey Monthly. I basically was a full-time freelance writer.
Yeah.
And while I was at Rolling Stone, Jan Wenner, was the publisher of Rolling Stone, and also basically the founder, along with Ahmet Ertegun, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? They said, we're going to build a museum in Cleveland. And so 5 writers from Rolling Stone were deputized, if you will, to become this new thing called music museum curators, right? And so I was a freelancer. I'm always looking for work. And I had just published a book on the blues called The Big Book of Blues. It took a 3-4 year project, an encyclopedia of the blues. And so I got the assignment of basically doing the roots music going down south. So I'd go down every week. I'd be like a rock and roll detective, and on the trail of, Howlin' Wolf's guitar or Leadbelly's guitar or, Professor Longhair's stage outfit. My base was Mississippi, Louisiana, Nashville, Memphis, all through Tennessee. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And because I had teaching experience, of the 5 of us, 2 of us moved to Cleveland, and I was one of them. And Jim Henke, the late Jim Henke, who was my editor at Rolling Stone, he was the head curator. I switched and became director of education and started to create to validate for teachers that going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum would be an educational experience, a resource, and that's what we turned it on to. So I changed gears, and I just loved it. I was just so happy to have that gig, because there were hundreds and hundreds of people who wanted to work with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I got that opportunity to be there and help open the doors to help create it, which was pretty cool.
That's amazing. And you had stuff to do with the Grammys, if I remember correctly, as well, right?
Yeah. Well, from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I went out to open Paul Allen's Experience Music Project, which is today known as Mopop. out of the blue, I got a call from Paul Allen, who, of course, started Microsoft with Bill Gates. He built this incredible Frank Gehry building out just under the Space Needle. It's a fantastic museum. And
I will be there next week with my son. We will go to Mopop when we're out there.
Go.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
Well, anyway, it was a great place. And, I had a chance to really learn not just the history, of course, but management and administrative, because I was a CEO, and all of us, I was, at Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I had a staff of 3, and went out to Paul Allen, I had a staff of 300, and someone who had never taken a business course or managed anyone, not even my kids, properly. I had this incredible responsibility, but working with Paul taught me a lot, and then finally I was with him for 8 years, and then went down to the Grammys in Los Angeles to open a series of Grammy museums, one in LA, of course, one in New Jersey, which was a temporary one, and then one that's still going strong in the Mississippi Delta called Grammy Museum Mississippi. Yeah.
In your wildest dreams, could you have seen any of this?
No, but I tell you, if there had been a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when I was 10, 12, 15 years old, it would have been a dream. It would have been a dream to work there. It was for anyone, I, like so many baby boomers, I started out, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and wanted a guitar, got a guitar, became a self-taught musician, had bands. It was clearly, I met a lot of girls. That's all I could say. I didn't do a whole lot in terms of making great music, but it was fun. But I knew I had no real future in it, and I was searching for some. I didn't want to go into the music industry. It just didn't. I worked with those people, publicists. A&R was kind of cool, finding new bands, but I wanted something with the history. And man, this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was a dream. And I didn't even have to apply. I got asked to do it, which was really very special. So it was a dream to come true for me. And, 34 years later, I've never looked back. This is something that I say I'm honored and humbled that I had this opportunity to do this, to grow old gracefully in rock and roll, something that's hard to do. Yeah.
It is hard. It is hard to do. It's quite a legacy. Who knows, Bob? Maybe we'll pull you out of retirement in 10 years when you build the Joey Song Music Hall of Fame with all of our artists that we have. Well, Bob Santelli, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we could probably do this for about another 4 or 5 hours, as we've proven. It's been a real pleasure. I'm going to tell everybody that's listening and watching this, from the conversations that Bob and I had off the record about this, you are going to want to make sure that a trip out to Jersey and Monmouth College is on your vacation list soon, because this is going to be phenomenal. I'm going to tell you right now, he is being way too modest on what you're going to see there. We talked about some of the facilities. State of the art doesn't even begin to describe it. And the depth, let's face it, there's not too many musicians, maybe other than McCartney, that if Bruce Springsteen calls you, you don't say, yes, sir, how high and how many. And think about that being behind this. And then the goal is not to fluff Bruce, it's to fluff American music, right? It's to put that out there. It's going to be spectacular. And I can't wait till Sam and I go out there, because it's going to be truly, truly amazing. So, Bob, thank you so much for your time. We will probably try to have you on in the fall after I've had a chance to be out there, and we can do this again and we can walk through it. Any closing words for us, Bob? Anything you want to let us know?
Yeah, I would just say that, having been a long time Bruce Springsteen fan, having seen him come from bar bands and even earlier than that, playing coffee houses, it's a real honor for me, and also a deep sense of responsibility. I have the responsibility of maintaining his legacy and putting it in its proper context in American music. That's a powerful thing. Yeah. Sometimes I don't like to think about it before I go to bed, because then I don't sleep. But you can understand why. I mean, it's a big thing, right? So,
damn right.
I was just with him today, and I took him through the building. He's about ready to go on tour, coming up. Up on Friday, Saturday, up to Minneapolis and
Chicago.
Yeah, and then Chicago, and then, but he went through and he's pretty excited about it. And so
he should be.
If he's excited, I'm excited.
That's the way it goes. Bob Santelli, thank you for joining us on the Joey Song Podcast. People, you can find us on the socials. I'm sure it won't take much of a Google search to find the Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. Look it up, put it on your plans. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Bob, we will see you down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end of the podcast. A quick reminder, if you can give us a follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast provider and write a short review, it will really help us out. If you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel over there, that's another big help. These simple acts make it easier for others to find us. And of course, head over to joeysong.org to join our community and stay up to date on all the news. Thanks, and we'll talk again real soon.
Learn more about Joey Song by visiting joeysong.org. The theme music was composed by Sam Gomoll, and Joey Song is a federally registered 501c3 charity. Thanks for listening.